Om Sai Ram. Today I will talk about Lakshmibai Ganesh Khaparde. She was the wife of Ganesh Shri Krishna Khaparde, who was a pleader, a famous lawyer at Amravati. He was also politically very powerful at that time, as he was the right-hand man of Lokmanya Tilak. Mrs. Khaparde, very little is known about her life prior to her marriage to Ganesh Khaparde. She lived in the affluence of her husband. When she got married, her father-in-law was a Mamlatdar under the British regime, and so he was also very affluent. Later, her husband graduated from law school and he became a lawyer. Lakshmibai was semi-literate in the sense that she could read, however, she could not write. But that does not mean she was uneducated. She read the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, the Shiv Leelamrit, and she heard the Kirtankars, and she was very knowledgeable about these things. She had a large household which she looked after. It was a household of about 50 people, and she was rather generous with everything that she did. At one time, when they would have a meal, say be it lunch or dinner, there were about 50 people. There were 2 cooks, 2 grooms who looked after the horses, 2 bullock cartmen, the gardener, his wife, the families that stayed with them. At one time, there would be about 6 or 7 visitors who stayed with them for long times. Also, they would have these students. There would be about 10 to 15 students at a time that they looked after and took care of and looked after their education also. Then there was Mr. Khaparde, Miss Lakshmibai Khaparde, her 3 sons, and their wives. Then there were other people who visited them, and they were all looked after. At a meal, everybody was given the same food. When milk was served, it was not served in glasses. What Mrs. Khaparde did was she would bring potfuls of milk and give them, everybody, the milk in plenty. As for ghee, it was not put upon the food. Rather, every member got 3 vatis or bowlfuls of ghee, and everybody was treated equally, right from her husband to the person who did the sweeping of her in the house, or the maid. They were all treated equally. As for her children, they were all well turned out. They wore silk dhotis, which was the custom at that time, and it had about a border of about 9 or 10 inches. The top vest was also made of silk. She never let her children wear cotton, and if at all anything was torn, it was immediately discarded. She also looked after the other students or guests that came to her. There was a student called Nilkhari, and he was admitted in hospital as he had an abscess on his thigh. Every day, Lakshmibai would go to the hospital and nurse him. He stayed in the hospital for 2 months. She would feed him, change his dressing, look after the wounds, and take utmost care of him. When he recovered and he came out, he said, "If it was not for Lakshmibai, I would never have survived. Even my mother would not have done what Lakshmibai did for me." That was the way she treated people. Lakshmibai knew country medicine and Ayurveda of sorts. Her mother-in-law had given her a secret to treat jaundice. 1 dose of the medicine would be given and the jaundice would be cured. She also handed over this medicine to her daughter-in-law, and she told them how to treat the patients. Thus, a lot of patients would be at their doorstep and they would get cured of their jaundice. Now I shall go to the chapters in the Charitra that are described and her experiences that she had with Baba. On 8th January 1912, a terrible incident occurred in her life. Her young son Balwant started having high fever and he started shivering, and she knew that he had plague because there was an epidemic of plague in Shirdi. So in the evening, while Baba was coming back from Lendibag, she had decided to ask for permission to take her son back to Amravati for medical treatment. So she went to him quite distraught and said, "Baba, my son is sick." And before she could ask him for permission to leave, Baba said to her, "Mother, don't worry. The sky is full of menacing clouds. They are dark and black. But it will soon pour forth rain, and the skies will clear." And thus saying, he lifted his kafni and he showed her 4 buboes that he had taken upon himself, and Balwant recovered. The other incident that is extremely important to her and to all of us is that which occurred on 4th March 1912. That day, Mrs. Khaparde was late in bringing bhog for Baba. She had in her house dohale jevan for one of the people who were with her. That is, all the things that a woman craves in pregnancy are given to her on a platter. She is dressed up beautifully and she is gifted a sari. And Mrs. Khaparde did this for her, and thus she was late in bringing her bhog to Baba. She entered the Dwarakamai and the curtain was drawn. However, she entered into the sanctum sanctorium and placed the plate in front of Baba. Baba immediately came down from his seat, took the plate and started eating the food. Shama, who was standing there, said, "Oh, Deva, what is this? You do not touch the food that was brought by other devotees. Sometimes you even throw it away. But this lady brings the food and you eat it so nicely. What is this secret?" Then Baba tells her previous births. He says that she was once a fat cow and belonged to a merchant, and she gave him plenty of milk at that time. Then she was born in a gardener's house, and then she was married to a merchant, and now she is born into a Brahmin family. I have seen her after a long time, so let me partake of this food which she has brought with love and devotion. And then he sat and ate the food, washed his hand, belched as a sign of satisfaction, and then outstretched his legs out for Lakshmibai to do charan seva. Lakshmibai kept massaging his legs, and Baba massaged the hands that were doing the charan seva. And then he said in a lovely voice, "Say Rajaram, Rajaram, Rajaram." And there he gives Mantra Updesh to her. He tells her if she says it, she will find peace and she will reach her goal. And this was said so beautifully by Baba that it went into the recess of her heart, and she kept on continually reciting the mantra that was given by Baba. Here we see that the Sadguru who said that I do not blow mantras into anybody's ears. In fact, he said, "Me kaan funknare guru nahi." Yet he gives Lakshmibai the Mantra Updesh openly in front of everybody. He also gives her Shaktipat by pressing the hands that were doing charan seva to him. This is the most incredible relation that a Sadguru and a Shishya can have. It shows the amount of respect that he had for this lady. When Lakshmibai was in Shirdi at that time, she did not realize the situation that India was going through. On July 22nd, 1908, Lokmanya Tilak was imprisoned in Mandalay Bay in Burma, and her husband, who was his right-hand man, decided to sail to England to get his release on 15th August 1908. He told his son, who was studying in Mumbai. However, his son could not tell his mother, and his mother resented it, and she held it against him for all these years. When they went to Shirdi, Baba kept him for about 4 months. At that time, there was a mole planted by the Britishers who was called Hamsa, who ingratiated himself with the family. He also went and stayed with them, and Lakshmibai treated him as usual like the rest of the children, and she looked after him very well. However, he took away some of the diaries that he had written. They didn't realize that he was a mole for a long, long time. Lakshmibai, when her husband had gone to England and stayed there for about 2 years, was very upset, and she held it against him as he did not tell her about all these things. However, Baba knew the situation and that his life was in danger, and oftentimes he said that he had to kill the governor with his trishul, and the Udi was what made people live and survive. So there were times in which the Britishers would have killed him or hung him for sedition. Lakshmibai was a very healthy lady. She hardly had any problems. However, in July, she started getting attacks of high fever and asthma. And she got bedridden because of her asthma. And 8 days after that, on July 20, 1928, she passed away. She had a premonition of her death. And what she did was, she took all her jewelry and her valuables, and they gave it to her daughter-in-law, all the daughter-in-laws were given her jewelry. She also asked for a family photograph to be taken. One day, when Khaparde was doing his sandhya, she came to him and she worshipped him like she would worship an idol. And he asked her why she did that. So she told him that she wanted to leave this earth peacefully. And then she lay down and she started getting these attacks of asthma more and more. So they brought her down from the room and laid her in front of the God's room where all the idols that were worshipped, that she could see them. And then her Sadguru gave her Sakshatkar just prior to her death. And then very peacefully she breathed her last. That was on July 20, 1928. Khaparde was upset and besought with grief at the death of his wife. However, he soon recovered and he led a very fruitful life. The life of this gentle lady was so good. From there, we can realize that if we have Nishkaam Bhakti to Baba, her bhakti was so great that it forced Baba to give her Mantra Updesh. This is something we can all inculcate into our life. If we have such bhakti towards the Sadguru, oh, our life will be so wonderful. Om Sai Baba.